do the maze animation. I'll double click on this. I've got it saved as a Photoshop file. It will say, hey, the pixel aspect is different, but that's okay. Say okay to that. This is what it looks like. So I've got a regular Photoshop file. In the top layer, I've got a little ball. In the second layer, I've got the maze itself, and the bottom is just the background with all the numbers that are in it. If you look down in our timeline, the very middle, it's going to ask you to create a video. Now, if you don't see create video, remember we've also got to create a frame animation. This is what we use to create a GIF. In our case, we actually want to make a video to work from. With that, I'll click OK, and this is what it looks like. I'll zoom back out. Actually, let's make this bigger so we can see it. In our timeline, every layer that we have also has its own little time to exist in. So on layer 2, I've got the little ball. On layer 1, I've got the maze itself. I don't have one for the background layer. If I was to press play, this thing is called the playhead, and wherever it's at, that's where an animation will take place. So right now, I've got it set for 5 seconds, so it'll actually play through by default for 5 seconds. If I zoom in, here's the next thing to know about it. Every second, so here's 1 second, is broken up into 30 frames. So here's 10 frames, 20 frames, 30 frames for 1 second. Then 10, 20, 2 seconds. So if I wanted to shorten the time that something is on the screen, so in this case the little ball, I can go to the very end of my timeline, click on this, and drag it. And you can see there's the duration and the ending point. I'm going to zoom out so we can see the whole thing. I'm just going to drag it down to something a little bit more manageable. So here we are. So if I wanted it to only be on the frame for 1 second, I'll drag my playhead back to the start. Let's move my ball so we can see it. So if I hit play, disappears. But this remains the same. So why did it disappear? Because I shortened the time frame. The background, this layer, the maze itself, stayed on there. You can move when you want it to start and stop as well. If I click on this and drag, so now my starting point will happen at 1 second and my stopping point will happen at 2 seconds. Let's bring our playhead back to the beginning. So now when I click play, starts, stops from there. That's the basics of setting up the first animation. All good? Did I confuse everybody? And of course you can change the duration of it by clicking and dragging. So what we're going to do for this animation, we'll place the ball back at starting point, is I want to move this ball from here through the maze. And you can follow the numbers as they go through. And you'll see why it's set up. The first thing I need to do is to set my duration of each one of these to last for 14 seconds. Right now, all of this is taking up a lot of time, all the way to 5 seconds on the end. I'm going to zoom in, down here at the bottom. If I click and drag, now I can compress it down, and I can drag these over. Last, all the way to 14. 12, 13, 14, right there. So there's that one. So now the ball will last for 14 seconds, and we'll drag this one so the maze will last for 14 seconds as well. Here's how we're going to animate the ball. Inside of layer 2 on your timeline, if you click on the down arrow, I've got 3 different things that I can animate. This looks the same as with our frame animation. The position is what I want us to be changing up. So with this, if I click on the stopwatch, it's going to make a little diamond right wherever I have my playhead. And this is called the keyframe. So this is the starting point. If I go up to my ball, I can move it around through time. So at each number, This is where I want it to be at on my timeline. So at 1 second, I want it to be here. At 3 seconds, here, 5, so on and so forth. Here's what we're going to do. So back to my playhead. I'm going to move the playhead to 1 second. Then I'm going to move the ball to number 1. Notice what I've got here. See how it created another little diamond point? This is our keyframe. Move the playhead, in this case, to 3 seconds, and then move the ball to 3. Now watch my time as I back it up. The computer is going to make the animation for me. It's going to transition from one point to the next point to play it. Make sense? So all you're doing, be sure you move the playhead first to the correct position, then move the ball down, and it should create a little point. Move it to the correct position, in this case 6, and move it over. 7, and up, all the way, let's see, to the very end. Now if you move the ball first and then move the playhead, it's not going to work out. It'll actually jump all the way to the end. But what I want to do is to have it so it can play, moving its way all the way through the maze from one point to the other. All it's doing is moving from this position to this position. Click, click, click. Once you've finished, by the end of this animation, it should reach all the way to 14. If it does something like this, where it's moved from one number to the other number and it starts to jump straight through, well, you've either done something wrong or you've skipped over too many numbers to work through. Any questions on this part? Very, very simple, very easy little animation to set up. All you're doing is making it look okay. You're turning on the position translation, and it will track everything else that you're doing. Here's the last thing you're going to do. Here's how to save your files as movie files. Once it's been created, of course you can save it. If I saved it now, it would be just saved as a Photoshop document, and that's okay. To make it a movie file, you can either go to File, Export, Render Video, or here's a faster way. At the very bottom of your timeline, look for this little icon, and that does the same thing as well. It'll bring up this little dialog box. Here's what you need to know about this dialog box. First of all, you can give it a name, and you can select what folder you want to save it into. So if I know I want it to be on the desktop, I can change it or wherever. The second area talks about what file format you want it to be saved as. Here's the 3 common file formats. A DPX is, I forgot the acronym it stands for. This is a very high quality professional editing format. If you're doing special effects, if you're working with someone who does movie editing, DPX is what they generally want. H264, this is called an MP4 format. The web uses a lot of MP4. Actually, with it selected, you can see there's MP4 as well. You've heard of an MP3 before? For audio, MP4 is for video. And then there's QuickTime. QuickTime is used for DVDs, and it's used for a lot of computers. It's very standard as well. So any one of these 3, you would need to ask them how you want it to be saved. With them set, you can choose different qualities. So if I know I want something to be on an Android phone, if I wanted to save something for an iPod or an iPhone, I can easily choose that. And you can also change up the size of it and the frame rate as well. Very rarely do I change up anything else from this. It's very rare that I do video editing in Photoshop. And you can also choose the start and stop time from here. Once I'm done, I hit render. It may take a couple of seconds to a couple of minutes depending on the size of your video, but it'll export it. In this case, I think it should export it to my desktop. There we go. And if I look on my desktop, here we are. Here's my MP4 that's been created. I can play it, and there it is, saved as a regular video that we can upload to Moodle. All good? Seem fun? I can show you all the preview for the next one. The next one, We're going to get a little bit more fancy. Rather than just moving from side to side, you'll actually move different puzzle pieces at different times, rotating them, transforming them from that one. Okay? All right, I'll pause the recording for now.